Hi everybody, how's it going? This is Eden Maybon of LightCycleAstrology.com. Today we are doing part 2 for the Aquarian Sun that is making that trine aspect starting this Thursday to Mars in Gemini. Now, yesterday we did a video about this because we are seeing that Mars recovering out of his previous retrograde moment here, picking up some speed. This is one of the big aspects that seems to give some power or restoration back to Mars because it's the Sun. And the Sun is applying to Mars by this very benefic trine and giving a lot of solar energy to it. There are some caveats to this because the Sun is traveling through a Saturn sign, so sometimes the Sun in a Saturn sign may give things that are hard or a little bit outside of the box or unusual or maybe even dark somehow. But that being said, I thought today, since we went over the meaning of this aspect yesterday, that this would be a good time to go into some horoscopes for all 12 rising signs. So we're going to go through and delineate some house topics based on this combination and this aspect through whatever house that the Sun and Mars are occupying based on your rising sign chart. All right, let's go ahead and I'll pull up the chart here and we will put Aries on the ascendant now. So if you are an Aries ascendant, we are seeing the action of these two planets making this trine together take place between your 3rd and 11th house. We have the Sun in the 11th, co-present with Saturn, making this trine to Mars in the 3rd house of routines and everyday environments. So I'm wondering, could there be a Saturnine solar kind of figure that acts as some kind of benefactor to you, but that tasks you with all kinds of works or duties or obligations or errands, something like that, that gets you out into your local city, driving around, maybe doing some tasks that are really intruding upon your everyday workflow? It's as if there is some superior energy that is overriding something in your regular routine or environment right now. But it might be something that is really beneficial to you because it's a beneficial aspect we're seeing. So I'm wondering also, maybe could there just be you doing some hard work with a group that has some connection to your local city or culture? We could also see something like that. I'm wondering also, could friends be encouraging you to do something technical, or something like writing, or maybe you're a race car driver and you get back in the race car, something like this. It's like there may be some very almost like pushy or demanding friends or people that you really look up to that are somehow they're good and they're friends and they want your best interest, to come through in whatever you do. And it's like they really are being very stubborn about pushing you to get something going that has something to do with your technical abilities, that may have something to do with what it is that you're good technically or intellectually at doing. So I'm wondering about something along those lines as well. We could also see maybe there's just some general motivation to reorganize your daily routines in such a way where you might have to limit time with social things regarding groups or hanging out with friends or something like that. Maybe there's a little bit of an austerity moment where you say, I got to balance my social time with my routine. I got to figure out how to get my routine a little bit more organized and heading on to some higher form of organization that helps my life out in general. So I'm wondering about things like that. Now, of course, with all these house topic delineations, these are just some very basic, a few different examples that we could get into. And the planets are not limited to, and the houses are not limited to how they show up in our lives, but we take the general topics of the house and we get something around the notion of groups and friends, maybe professional goals or aspirations, benefactors for the 11th, and things like the everyday environment, the culture, the mental routines or habits or rituals that we go through, and we pair those things together. Okay, let's go ahead and place now Taurus on the ascendant, and we are going to move this aspect now between the 10th house of careers and reputation and the work that we do out in the world on a day-to-day basis to Mars in the second house of resources and personal possessions and personal finances and investments. So I'm wondering, if you're a Taurus rising, are you receiving potentially like a raise at work that also brings with it more responsibilities? You know, is there also maybe personal money that you need to spend for investing in your own personal achievement at work, or maybe on your reputation? So I'll give you an example of this. Let's say that it's like the boss comes down from the 10th floor and he says, "Hey, Joey," or "Sally, I need you. I got this great investment opportunity on a put option for this company that I found. And, I'm looking for people to go in with me." Because Mars in the second oftentimes can have this indication of money that is somehow coming to you through independent action, or sometimes it can represent losses in the second house, because Mars is a planet that was a symbol of the sword that cuts away things or makes things independent or on their own. So this interesting Mars energy in the second, normally if you see a trine between the 10th and the second, you're automatically going to say, hey, this is you working really hard at work, receiving some accolades, and this is all giving you more money into your second house. But because it's Mars, it makes me wonder if somehow the money is leaving the second house for some beneficial reason that supports something you're doing for your own personal success. I could also see it having something like, let's say that you're putting on a banquet or like a charity fundraiser, something like this, where you're in the spotlight, that reputation, that recognition that you get from the 10th house, but needing to, spend a lot of money on it or something like that. Okay. Something else I could see is investing in things outside of the box or connected to the underbelly of society. Let me explain that a little bit. So when you're thinking about the sun running through a Saturnine kind of house, Saturn is a planet that is associated with the underbelly of society. So maybe a more shadowy version of this transit for some people out there could be, like something like Bernie Madoff telling you, hey, let's go into business together. So I would be careful a little bit about opportunities financially, opportunities to invest in something financially, that you're investing in something like, don't buy a weed farm or something like that right now. Or maybe do buy that weed farm. Maybe it's going to work out great. This is a benefic aspect between these two planets, but you get that Saturnine kind of quality to it, where it's somehow maybe outside of normal society. It maybe has this connection with like homelessness or orphanhood or something like that. So there's many ways this could work out. Maybe you are investing in orphanage, something like that. But I would be a little bit leery of investing in things that maybe are not so, anything shady. Like just be careful of shady investments maybe. Okay. And lastly, for Taurus risings, maybe this is just simply overworking and burnout. You're getting some money from doing all this work, but you're just kind of burning out. All right, let's go ahead and put Gemini on the ascendant now. And this is going to bring this action into a very existential house. That's the word I was looking for. So you've got the sun in the ninth now, making this trine to the Mars in the first house. And for Gemini risings, this makes me wonder, okay, I'm going to give you a personal example of this because it'll highlight the nuance of some of these transits, because there's so many ways that the gods can represent their signatures. They can give us signs for any number of things. And if you think about how many Gemini risings are alive on the planet right now, well, they can't all just, be going back to school to become a more rounded person, right? There has to be a whole variety of things that are going to be showing up for people that have Gemini rising charts. So I'll give you an example of this. This is a very concrete example that blows my mind every time I think about it. My wife is pregnant, and which I've been talking a little bit more about on the channel, because we only have a couple of months to go before she gives birth, which means that the baby will be born as an Aries sun native. So she's had Mars in retrograde and in her first house of Gemini for, forever. Pretty much the whole pregnancy is when, so it's very concrete. It's a very concrete delineation right off the bat. She literally has Mars in her body, right? Mars in the first house. She has a Mars native growing in her body. Very concrete. And because this is having a big impact on our life, obviously, whenever you have a new baby, right, it's a big deal. It changes everything in your life. And because babies tend to change everything massively, it's calling into question all kinds of higher philosophical understandings. So the ninth house has this connection to experiences that really push us beyond our normal everyday understanding. It's like we receive some kind of message or inspiration from on high. The sun in the ninth, the sun having its joy in the ninth, it's like God himself comes down and says, you need to be more religious because you're not being a very good character in your own story. Something like it has that almost religious connotation. But I think for my wife, it's more like, oh man, this is changing who I am. I'm becoming a mother, right? That's huge. So there might be questions around, who are you? How do higher philosophical, moral, spiritual guidelines, principles, or understandings, how do you see your own place in the cosmos writ large? It could be something very deep like that. Now, obviously, it could just be something like you're going to get your degree and that's going to change who you are. We could see some pretty deep things with this, or we could see maybe like you could see somebody that decides they're going to start going back to their spiritual group or back to church, because that's who they are as a person. That's who they think they should be as a person. Something very personal with this one. Okay, let's go ahead and put now Cancer on the ascendant, which is going to drop this energy into your 8th and your 12th house. So this right off the bat, both of these houses are houses that were thought of as unfavorable houses in the ancient world. So this one may be a little bit more interesting or difficult, but it could be like paying out for health issues that eventually leads back to recovery. You get the 12th house, a place that is connected to recovery, because the planets traveling through the 12th day after day, they're actually intending, or they're trying to head to the first. So the 12th house is a place that that you don't see. It's like your blind spot. And it's a place that was associated with the loss of starlight as the sun is rising. Eventually, the lights of the stars get overcome by the light of the sun. And so there's this liminal connotation with the 12th that's like things are losing visibility. And because it's connected and neighboring the first house, it's as if this place is saying the 12th house is relating to places that are somehow lost places for you. So in the ancient world, they said like shipwrecks, or marooned on this is like Gilligan, marooned on a desert island. So I'm wondering if there is some health connotations with this, and it's like maybe somebody getting chemotherapy where you really get zapped, you really get just blasted from the chemotherapy. It costs a lot of money, maybe going into debt from doing something medically in the 8th, but that eventually this trine aspect, this benefic aspect, maybe indicating that you got to go through it to get back to health, or you got to go through it to get back to where you're supposed to be. Maybe if it's not related to health, just psychologically or spiritually or mentally, somehow it's like you need the support of people. You might need to have to spend some money or go into debt. Who do you rely on to get back to personal health? There's something that is trying to help you out, or that you need to rely on, or that maybe you're trying to help somebody out. And it has this connection with you making some kind of recovery. Mars turning direct back in the 12th house after a long retrograde. It's now time for things of the 12th house to make a recovery, and it's intending to head back into your first house, which eventually it will do. Eventually Mars will enter your first house, and that is when you see that recovery come, potentially. So this is a really, really interesting one. Getting sponsored or becoming a sponsor in a recovery or spiritual program. I think of like my dad, who was in AA and in a 12-step program. and he was always having sponsors, or he was always getting help from sponsors. Something like that maybe could be also being indicated by this pattern of energy. Spending a spouse's money on ill-begotten things, or conversely, having a spouse spend collective money on things that lead astray, like drugs or spiritual retreats or something like that. This has a real potential for some shadowy types of things within the energy to come through, because we're dealing with the 8th to the 12th. And so I'm wondering, is like, is your husband going to, decide that he wants to spend all kinds of money to go to this beautiful vacation, and somehow it's just not the best thing right now? Or, are you having to pay off a debt, or are you going into debt, and you're spending the money that you got from the loan on something that just isn't so great for you right now? I would be careful of a little bit of that shadowy side with this one. Okay, let's go ahead and put Leo on the ascendant now. And that is going to place the sun in your 7th, making that trine to Mars in the 11th. So right away, we can see it's a very, very social place between these two social houses here. And it makes me wonder, the 7th house is a place that has a connection to things that are like legal judgments being finalized. It makes me wonder if, and it also has a connection to competitors. So if you're a sports athlete, or if there's somebody that you're in competition with somehow, whether it's legally or just a competitor of some kind, maybe if you're negotiating a sale, it could be the other party in the sale. There's this opposition to the 1st house from the 7th that says whatever is in the 7th represents something directly opposite to you. That may be a love interest, a marriage partner, something like that, but it could also be a competitor or even an open enemy. So somebody that is directly in competition with you somehow or another, that maybe has the upper hand in a judgment or sale, or somehow is victorious there and is sort of acting very sternly. And it could be that somehow this has an effect on your social groups of friends. Maybe I could think of, like, let's say there's somebody that is going through a separation or a divorce, and it's almost over, or it's being finalized, and it's like somehow you're like, oh man, I don't have to hang out with my ex-husband's best friend anymore because I never really liked him. So there might be a little bit of a separation from a certain groups of people, or, things like that were connected to your partner some way or another. Maybe you're having to do something that is somehow bringing you away from certain groups of people, but in a way that is actually beneficial. Like, it might be for the best. You might actually really be thankful for that in some way or another. Something else I could see, settling into a social group that is somehow adventurous or sporty, right? Proposals that lead to new groups of friends or work colleagues. Okay, so both of these things kind of had this interesting way in which, is there something taking place socially, maybe connected with your partner, that it's like maybe you got proposed to and your husband is in the military, and so now you're going to be having all kinds of new military friends that you hang out with, or something like that. So maybe gaining some friends that have this Mars Gemini 11th house quality, where they're just sporty or athletic or independent somehow, or edgy or adventurous. Maybe you're going to the racetrack. You're going to spend more time with your husband who likes to go, watch sports, or, something like that. Okay. So, and the last thing I could see for if you're a Leo rising, well, again, there are many things. So the last thing that I sort of came up with for this particular video that I have is mediations of disputes between friends that work out favorably. Yeah. Again, going back to that legal thing with the 7th house and the aspect coming into here, symbolism, the aspect coming in as a symbol that is something like, hey, is there some kind of mediation? The trine was said to be of the nature of Jupiter, and Jupiter was a god that mediated dispute between people, but in a way that might end up favorably for you. Okay, let's go ahead and put Virgo on the ascendant. Now, and of course, if you guys think of anything, or if there's some way in which you're seeing this show up for you, definitely leave it in the comments, because it's always, of course, really interesting to see the ways in which these things can come through. And I really like to see that. So, but if you are a Virgo rising, now this is going to place the sun in your 6th house, making that trine to Mars in your 10th. So definitely some connection with hard work and career, or a job, or something like that. Let me pull up my notes here. But what we have here for this one is settling into hard work or service that grants recognition or reputation, bringing with it independence because others regard you with confidence. Yeah, it's like Mars in the 10th maybe grants some kind of independence. So it's like maybe you've been really having the nose to the grindstone, and now people are starting to see it at work. Like the managers are starting to go, this guy, he really gets stuff done. We don't have to watch him so much anymore. We have confidence that he's just going to get it done. Something like that. Of course, this could be maybe you get a promotion that comes with more responsibilities, but also maybe in such maybe the changing responsibilities gets you out of the office more. Maybe somehow or another you're just somehow not there as much because you have these other responsibilities, and maybe you're getting a promotion because it's a trine, something like that, favorable. Okay, and also we can see opportunities to work on personal projects away from work, because again, we have Mars in the 10th house. It makes me wonder if there's a little bit of an independence from things that are happening out in the world where you're visible. The 10th house is the house where you're most visible as a person. So it makes me wonder, are you renovating a duplex that is taking a lot of work, and somehow it's going to lead to some success, but it's not necessarily success at the workplace or at the 9 to 5. It's more success on a personal project, something like that. Okay, let's keep going, and let's go ahead and put Libra on the ascendant now, which is going to place these 2 planets in your 5th and your 9th house. The 5th house of children and the 9th house of philosophy. This is an interesting one. So for Libra risings, is there a connection to your home and traveling, going home to visit parents, something like that? So why am I getting home for the 5th house? Well, there's an ancient delineation for the 5th that was connected to the land of the family. The 5th house was a place that was as a derivative house of the 4th, right? It was considered the assets or the money or the wealth of the home or the family home. That derivative 2nd house connotation comes in and says, is there something connected to your ancestral home or lands, or the home of your family or father? And that connection to the 9th house makes me wonder, hey, I can almost see, like, is this like that example we see sometimes in movies where, you get a call from an estate manager, what do they call it? An executor of somebody's estate, and they say, oh, your uncle on your dad's side passed away and left you a ranch, but now you have to go see it. It gives me a little bit of that picture or image in my mind. Okay, beyond that, it could be something like hard work, doing creative things that expand beliefs. So it's kind of like you're working on a creative project, and it's going well. Like you're starting to have breakthroughs, and this begins to change or reform your beliefs. You're like, yes, I can do this. I really can make this happen for myself. I could see that. Settling into an idea of curbing recreation, gambling, indulgences that you partake in to better become in line with personal convictions. Or conversely, stubbornly clinging to pleasures and changing beliefs around what should make you happy. Okay, let me explain that, since I didn't really read that very clearly. So yeah, the fifth house, like let's say that you decide, oh man, I got to stop doing, I got to stop playing so much uh, golf, or I got to curb something that I do for pleasure or for recreation because it's Saturn in the fifth, and it's just not in line with my own personal guiding principles, who I believe I should be as a person, right? Somehow it's just not in line with it. I need to rebalance the dynamic between recreation and responsibility, or something like that. Maybe I need to balance the dynamic between indulgence and living a spiritual, healthy life, something like that a little bit. Okay, or conversely, maybe you're stubbornly holding on to what brings you joy or happiness, and maybe that's okay. Maybe you should, because you're forming new beliefs that say, I need to get rid of some ways in which I used to believe I shouldn't do things that bring me joy. I could see that as well. Okay, and we have questions of how to become a better parent that fits more in line with personal beliefs. Same kind of thing, but now we just angle it back towards children. Maybe there is a time or questions coming up where you say, oh, I really should be a better parent. I should take more responsibility in parenthood. Maybe I should start teaching my children some spiritual, religious, or moral beliefs. Maybe I need to help my children get more educated or more understanding, something like that I could also see. Okay, now let's go ahead and put Scorpio on the ascendant, my own personal ascendant. I thought it was funny that one of the channels I watched, the astrologer was saying, "Oh, when I go through horoscopes with my own ascendant, it's like I lose perspective. I'm too close to it." It's funny. I almost have the opposite experience where my own one I could sort of think about, and it makes sense to me, and it helps me understand the other ones because of my own one. Maybe that's my 5 planets I have in my first house in Scorpio that just really helps me understand myself. I don't know. But in any case, this is an interesting one for sure. We are having potentially, a solar Saturnine figure that is connected maybe with the 4th house. So it could be like a fatherly figure that is supporting you vicariously, or supporting your partnership somehow. Maybe it's like your dad says, "Oh, I'm gonna help you do this," or I'm gonna help your wife do this," or "Can I take your can I do this for you?" Something like that, where maybe you get a little bit of support or help from a solarly Saturnine fatherly kind of figure. It doesn't have to be a man, but it definitely has to be somebody that has a certain amount of gravitas and authority and solar or Saturnine kind of air to them, I would say. But maybe that there is something that is supportive coming through right now that is going to help you or your partner out. I could see that connecting to the 8th house. Obviously, this could be you getting a loan, remodeling a house, maybe something happening at the home that costs some money, and it's going well. Like things are starting to work now, but it's racking up some debt. Okay. Could it be you doing something at home that helps you pay off a debt? I wonder conversely with that too. Maybe you're realizing that there's something you could do at home that is more frugal, or somehow, like, it's just an easy example. Like, hey, we, like for instance, me, I live in Hawaii. Sometimes I think to myself, why am I putting clothes into the dryer? It's like sunny all the time here, and it's super hot. So why don't we just save on electricity and hang it on the clothesline outside that I've installed? Something very simple like that. It could be things like that. Also, fatherly figure supporting your marriage in some way. So pretty much the same thing, but just a little bit of like, let's pull in 4th house things with some solar kind of figure in the 4th house. And how does that connect to things that are supporting you or your spouse, or ways in which you're getting some support right now through money or loans or esteem from people? All right, let's go ahead and put Sagittarius on the ascendant now. And we are going to place this dynamic that is taking place in your 3rd house to your 7th house. That's also a pretty interesting dynamic. For Sag risings, I'm wondering if you are settling into a recent change to your schedule or routine. Back to that 3rd house topics where you have the everyday environment that you normally operate within, those normal mental routines or rituals or habits, just kind of the everyday things and places you go, that environment around you or around the home or around your everyday work schedule. When Capricorn came through, maybe there was some changes to that environment or routine. And as the sun moves into Aquarius, which is a solid, stabilizing, fixed air sign, it's wondering if you're getting ideas in which you could stabilize the recent changes to the routine or schedule. And somehow this has a connection to maybe your partner or your marriage in such a way that brings independence. So is it something like, because you've fixed the schedule at home, that now somehow your husband has time to go and do something he likes to do, that brings a benefit to the marriage? Maybe he wants to go fishing, every couple of weekends or something. And now you're able to do that, something a little bit like that. Could it also be maybe a relative, a third house kind of individual, maybe like an older relative, an older solar kind of relative that is spending time with your partner and is somehow creating more space between you and your partnership? I could see something around that. This one's interesting. If you have anything that's going on, if you're Sag rising, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Okay, let's go ahead and put Capricorn on the ascendant. And now we're going to move this energy from the second house of finances and resources. It's going to be making a trine to Mars in the sixth house of service, work, health, endless drudgery. Okay, for Capricorn risings, a rising sign that is no stranger to hard work. Could this be some kind of curbing of expenditures in order to cut down on the amount of work you have to do, or to pay for a project you're working really hard on? I could definitely see something like that. Investing in your health, something like, are you reorganizing your budget in order to figure out how to come up with membership fees or fines, or something like that? Like I have a friend who would, I'm sure, be thinking about, well, I really want to do this, this thing at the gym, but it's real expensive. I want to take this class or course or something like that. So maybe I need to reorder some of my finances. Maybe I need to kind of be really frugal with my money, save this extra chunk of money to apply to a project or to something I need for health, or, I could see that. Okay. Working hard to stabilize assets or resources. There's some connection here. You're working hard. You're maybe trying to come up with some new ideas how you could reinvest, save some money, reorder the budget, and maybe it's to either not work so hard or to apply that money to something you're working hard on, or maybe it's just you're working hard to do the reorganization of the budget. Something like that is coming through for my images for this combination here for Capricorn risings. All right, Aquarius risings is going to move now this energy from the first house. The sun is in your first whole sign house, and it is making that applying trine to Mars over the next week or so in your fifth. So this is also a really very interesting one. Becoming more personally involved with your children, maybe with sports or recreation, a project you're doing at home, something like that, etc. Also, I'm wondering that solar Saturnine kind of stern, strict, or not limiting, but kind of that stern, stubborn quality. I'm wondering if you're becoming a little bit of a begrudged, is that the right word? Begrudged, or it's like you're stubbornly feisty right now, and you want to help out. You're doing something with your children, or you're doing something with friends at, recreationally maybe, or you're doing something creatively with children, something fifth house related, but you're doing so in a way that's a little bit like you're a character right now. You're being over the top almost, maybe with strictness or sternness, something like that is coming through. So it's like maybe you're driving your children nuts, but you're just trying to help out. I don't know, something along those lines I could see for Aquarius risings. All right, and now let's go ahead and, oh, one other thing for Aquarius risings that I thought of earlier that I wanted to mention is also makes me wonder if somehow or another there is some connection to body or health with the sun going into the first house and making that trine. Is there something you're thinking, I need to, I need to revitalize myself or my body somehow. I need to focus on health. And so maybe there's some kind of action. So I could also see maybe you need to get out and do something recreationally that is going to be healthy for your body. I could also see that. Okay, let's go ahead and put Pisces on the ascendant now. And we're going to see the sun now into your 12th house, making that trine aspect to Mars in the 4th. All right. This is an interesting one because we have the sun in contrariety, which is thought of as sometimes a rascal or rebel-y kind of place for any planet to be in the opposite to its own natural temple. The sun naturally likes to be in Leo. So he is rascally and foreign of a place as he could possibly be. He's as far away from home as he could possibly be from his own nature. And so sometimes that makes a planet rebellious or like an outsider. Also running through the sign of Aquarius, naturally a Saturn ruled sign of outsiders. So this makes me wonder if there is some form of support that is coming from like kind of an outsider person or from a belief or ideology that is somehow a little bit foreign or rebellious, that is having some kind of effect on your home or family, that's causing you to do something, take some action at home, maybe build something, or I don't know. But it's really interesting, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to turn out bad. It could be interesting and seemingly not so great at the outset, but maybe it'll work out a little bit better. It could be you having this sense of like, I'm not where my home isn't what I want it to be. My home isn't where I want it to be. This is not my idealistic home. But maybe there's a way in which you can make the best out of the situation. You just sort of have to settle in and come to terms with this feeling that it's like, well, this isn't my ideal home, but I'm here now, and I'm settling into this place because we're talking about Aquarius being that solid or fixing sign of the winter season. So I'm settling into the winter now. I just have to go through this period, and it has some connection to the home or family. I just have to go through this period, and maybe there's some benefic epiphany moment that comes through that says, I can't leave anytime soon. The situation is here. I might as well make the best of it, make the best of my home. Maybe I need to get going and do something to the house to make it a little bit better or a little bit nicer. Something like that. So I could see, the sense of like being marooned in a home that isn't what you'd like it to be or where you'd like it to be or how you'd like it to be. Solar figures in shadowy places trying to lend support to a family or home. That's the general signification I get. That is also an interesting one. If you have examples for that, I would love to hear it if you're a Pisces rising. Okay, guys, that's all I have for the 12 rising sign horoscopes for today. Please drop a comment in the comment section if there is any interesting ways in which you see these coming through in your own personal lives. Just leave your rising sign so I know what you are. And only if you're comfortable doing so, sharing on a public forum. That would be fun to see how these delineations are coming through the house topics. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate all the new subscribers. That is a major motivational factor. Speaking of the Sun trine Mars for me, it's been really great growing the channel and seeing how people are enjoying some of the things that I'm putting out here. And it really makes me believe that I can do this, and also how astrology is such a powerful tool to bring people together and to help us understand what in the world is happening to us on a day-to-day basis. Where would we be without astrology? I am certainly glad that I have it in my life. So thank you for watching, everybody. I really appreciate that. And I'll be back soon with another astrology video. Take care. I'll see you soon. Bye.